How should I save for that down payment? And then how should I go about paying for that down payment? The reason why we're covering just the down payment, not the whole home purchase, is that it's the single largest lump sum expense you'll pay up front in the entire home buying process. Sure, you'll have other closing costs and property taxes, and then you'll obviously have that monthly mortgage payment. But you have to prioritize the down payment above all to get in a good position and get the optimal terms for your mortgage. I've also seen a lot of friends spend a ton of effort focusing on the saving aspect, but then incur a ton of taxes and potential penalties when it comes time to actually paying for that down payment. I'm Tony from Wealthfront, and we're gonna discuss how you can make that down payment for your home in the most efficient way. So, how should you save for the down payment first? The main factor here is timing. How far out are you planning on buying that home? If it's within the next 3 or so years, consider only saving this in a cash or a high yield savings account so that you can easily access it without any withdrawal penalties or taxes. You don't want to invest funds that you may need in the next few years because markets can be super volatile from year to year. In fact, our analysis has shown that there's about a 1 in 4 or 25% chance of loss for investments within a time horizon of less than 4 years. Put in other words, if you're investing for less than 4 years, there's a 1 in 4 chance that you're gonna lose money at the end of it. For near-term purchases, it's just more prudent to stay out of the markets to avoid a potential downturn. Now, if your time horizon is longer than 3 or so years, your savings can afford to take on a little more risk, and you should absolutely consider investing those funds. We obviously recommend investing your money in a long-term diversified investment portfolio, which can deliver higher returns than the short-term savings accounts. Now, as you get closer to purchasing the home, we suggest moving that money from your investment account to a safer, low-risk option, like a savings account, as mentioned previously. So then, when you're ready to buy that home and make that down payment, what's the best way to pay for this? Your goal should be to avoid any withdrawal penalties and avoid a big tax hit. And with that, it starts with your cash savings. Don't go any further than here. If you've built this up, use the savings to cover for that down payment. Use the cash that's sitting there, making very little interest most likely, ready for you to use at this exact moment. And if this covers the full down payment, fantastic, you're done worrying about it. But if you're like most people, and like me, you probably didn't necessarily have the full lump sum cash savings ready to go to pay to that lender. In that case, let's look at the Roth IRA. You can always withdraw your contributions from a Roth IRA at any time, penalty and tax free. Also, if the withdrawal includes earnings, you can use up to $10K from a Roth IRA to help fund your first time home purchase. It might seem like an odd way to pay for your down payment. I mean, it's called a Roth IRA, individual retirement account, right? But if you could avoid any taxes and penalties, why not consider this next? Personally, we used a large amount of our Roth IRA to pay for our down payment last year. And I can tell you, our biggest regret is not maxing out the Roth IRAs while we could in our 20s. This would have helped us big time, trust me. You can also look at using the same IRS exception for the traditional IRA as you potentially did for the Roth, because withdrawals for first-time home purchases are allowed penalty-free up to $10K. But you'll still owe taxes on the full amount withdrawn, so you're not completely avoiding taxes here. It's just really about avoiding that 10% penalty. Lastly, if you've fully used your cash savings and then maxed out the Roth or the traditional IRA withdrawals up to that exception, you'll want to look towards your taxable investment account. And if you took our advice and invested early on, hopefully the majority of your investments in this type of investment account are at a long-term capital gain rate, meaning that you've owned the securities for at least 1 year. That way, when you go to withdraw funds from your taxable account, yes, you'll owe taxes on the earnings, but at the much lower long-term capital gains rate versus the short-term rate. Now, taxes are no fun, so no matter what the tax rate, when looking at the alternative between long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains, you're almost always better off paying the long-term rate. There you go. You did it. Go start saving for that home, and if you're ready to buy, optimize your down payment to avoid the extra costs that you can avoid. Thanks again for joining. This is Tony from Wealthfront. We'll see you next time.